episode 4 Power Performance Podcast. Joining me today is Coach Steve. Coach Steve is from Westfield, Mass. He owns and operates Full Plate Strength and Conditioning. Coach Steve, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Scott.
Good. How's everything been? We'll go with that. How's everything been in these tough times, first off?
I think it was tough for everybody, with just COVID in general, especially in Massachusetts with all the businesses shutting down and the quarantines and the lockdowns. And it's been a challenge for everybody. For gyms in general, it's particularly problematic because you only have so much space to work with athletes. And when you got to start restricting a lot of the things, it really starts to play with the programming a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Now, for my listeners out there that might not know or have ever been to Full Plate, let's describe what Full Plate is. So how would you put Full Plate into words? What is it? Where is it?
We're based out of Westfield, Mass. Like you said, and we do strength and conditioning, group strength and conditioning for particularly youth, high school athletes, some college athletes, and our adults as well. So our formatting is more about working with larger size groups to kind of build our community up a little bit.
Awesome. Now I met you. I used to intern in college at Full Plate Strength and Conditioning. Now let's describe the box a little bit, or the gym, to kind of let people know what's in there. You can kind of go around the gym if you want, or just some basic elements of what you have there.
Yeah, so we're about 3,500 square feet or so. We're on the smaller side of things, but we try to make the best use of the space that we have. So we have about 1,000 square feet or so of turf space where we do our warm-ups, we do our speed work, our jumping, our throwing. We have a wall that we can use for our medicine ball and slam ball work. So we have our light implement power. We have about 2,500 square feet dedicated to our lifting side of things. So our rogue rack, our rig there, our dumbbells, our benches. So it's kind of like a weightlifting area there. And then a little spot set off to the side as well for some conditioning. We have a assault bike, we've got the runners and rowers, stuff like that. So a little bit smaller, but that's kind of the way things go there.
Yeah, and I remember when I was there, you guys really utilized the space really well, especially when you have multiple groups in there. Now, at the gym, let's talk about the clientele that you serve. You briefly touched on it. You do like group, adult strength and conditioning. Let's hit all the groups that you guys host there at Full Plate.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a story actually. So
okay.
We started off, originally our brand was Full Plate Fitness, and our goal there was to work with more like general population, kind of adult fitness, kind of teach people how to really lift weights in a group setting. And we started off there in 2017 for a few months.
Nice.
That was the spring of 2017. By the summer of 2017, late summer, probably closer to September, one of our interns kind of had an in with a local lacrosse team. And with that, we were able to get some of the high school athletes to come in. And that grew pretty quickly.
Yeah.
By the fall time, we had to do our first expansion. So to put into perspective, our first location, we only had 1,000 square feet. So pretty much the size of our turf alone.
Yeah, pretty small.
Yeah, it was tiny.
I remember seeing the pictures. It looked like you put a full gym, like racks or dumbbells, all that stuff, in a hallway almost.
Yeah.
Is what it looked like.
Pretty much. We went to do the best we can. We had 2 squat racks, 1 bench, dumbbells, and a couple of free benches as well. So we didn't have a lot to work with, but at that time, serving our clients, it was more about the weightlifting side of things and not necessarily the performance side of things.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was the start. We started working with some adults there, and then we started to work with some of the high school athletes within 6 months. And by that February, we essentially doubled our square footage. So we went from 1,000 square feet to like 1,800 to fit the rogue rig, which had 6 double racks to it.
Nice. And that's not the facility you're in now, correct?
Nope.
No. Okay.
That was in a cold warehouse with 25-foot ceilings. It was really, really cold in the winter.
I remember seeing the pictures of that too. It was kind of like it looked like a huge space because it was like warehouse style.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, budget is an issue
Yeah. Well, exactly.
for
Yeah.
a
Especially
business
now.
starting out. Um, everything that we did, it was just, what do we have the budget for?
Yeah.
And a lot of new strength coaches going into the field, they don't have to deal with that as much anymore, because we look at like the big colleges and the weight rooms and strength and conditioning programs there. The gyms are already set up. The
Yeah.
budgets are there. We were in a unique situation where we had to create our own budget, and we had to find the people to start the business and to essentially find the income to invest in expanding the gym. That's kind of our um, kind of where we kind of lucked out there, is that it was a challenge, but it was a good learning experience.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah, working with the high schoolers was great. And within, I'll say 6 months from there, so by the summer of 2018, we had to expand again. So our groups were kind of growing in this, cold, dark warehouse. We actually had to move to our new facility, which is
Yeah.
where we met you.
Yep.
And within about a month of getting in there, we kind of rebranded as a strength and conditioning facility, not necessarily a fitness facility. And within a month of that, one of the local lacrosse coaches was looking to get his son some strength and conditioning, who was in 7th grade at the time. So he was like 11, 12 at the time. And he got a couple of his friends to come in as well. So we kind of started a small youth group. And that was in the summer. By the first month of the school year, so in September, by October, we had 2 full youth groups. So we went from 3 kids to 24 kids in a few months.
Yeah.
Really, really short time there. And that's how we kind of started to work with our youth athletes. It just kind of happened. And you kind of go with the flow, and you kind of say yes to everything, and you learn to do it as you go.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
we kind of learned how to work with the youth athletes, the high school athletes, the adults. And now that some of our high school athletes have graduated, we have some college groups that we work with as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, because when I was there, you had the adults in the morning and the night,
Mhm.
and then we had the youth group that I would always come in and help with during the day. But you also had split groups, right? You had a certain group in on Monday and Wednesday. And you had a Tuesday, Thursday group too, right?
Yep.
And then you had Coach Ryan's high school group
Mhm.
later on in the evening too, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so you had a whole bunch of stuff going on, and the adult groups were really busy too. I
Yeah.
remember in the morning, and especially at night, they were busy too. How is let's touch on the adult side of things first. How is that side going?
Well, I mean, as you remember before, it was insane. So this is obviously pre-COVID.
Yeah, everything's pre-COVID. Everything's
Pre-COVID.
pre-COVID.
Um, on a busy Monday night, we would have 30 people in the gym.
Yeah.
So we'd have 15 high school athletes. Then we had 30-minute stagger time, and we had 12 adults starting there. And we had 2, 3 coaches on at the same time. So it was chaotic, but it was organized at the same time.
Yeah.
Then COVID hit, and everything went up in flames.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening actually was we essentially lost about 75% of everybody.
Of the clientele.
Yeah, everybody.
Okay.
And rightfully so. I mean, we had to shut down, obviously.
Yeah.
Some people didn't like doing workouts online, understandable.
Yeah, totally get it.
Yeah. Obviously, and people didn't want to, well, we had to pause all the memberships. So from there, once we're actually able to open up again, people just kind of trickled in very slowly after that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the benefits, though, with all of that was that we were kind of forced to rethink our schedule, so we wouldn't be as cluttered, obviously, with COVID.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how are we going to make things work with having smaller groups? So yeah, one of the benefits was we got to look at the schedule, reevaluate kind of how we approached our own schedule and programming needs. So some benefit there.
Now of that, because now, I mean, we've been through, and you did some of the outdoor fitness stuff too, right? When that first opened. Yep. Because you
Mhm.
have that big grass patch out front, the
Yep.
grass kind of field. But now you guys are back in the gym, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And now of that, for example, kind of like 75%, you might not know the full number, but like have a lot of your clientele returned or started to make the return back?
Yeah, definitely. Once sports came back, then it was kind of more in full swing. Like people were like, "Hey, I got to get back in." A lot of people, a lot of the adults were like, "Hey, I'm sick of being at home all the time. I got to do something."
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. We have that a lot here too.
Mhm.
There was the same thing here. So for you, I'll let you know. I'm at a place called Reach Athletics.
Mhm.
It was a CrossFit gym that recently rebranded from CrossFit Reach to Reach Athletics. Um, but we still serve in CrossFit. We're powered by CrossFit. But we do some other things now too. So I have my high school strength and conditioning group that's growing. Those guys are awesome. We vary in age from 13 to 18. So it's the group, and it was kind of, we had a group of kids come in and they're like, we want to do some conditioning work or we want to do some strength work. And there was like 3 or 4 kids for like 2 months. And then all of a sudden it went from 4 to like 15 in like the next 2 months. And now steady flow every month. We get another person, 2 more people, another person. We get brothers and sisters of the people that were already coming. So it's slowly grown, which is cool to see. But for the adult side thing, that's where we do most of our coaching. Here we have 4 classes in the morning. We have a noon class and then 4 classes at night. It was the same thing. We had outdoor fitness for a while, and a lot of the adults started to trickle back slowly. And then by probably July, August, a good majority of the clientele had come back. And then as we started to make the transition indoors as well, we had some more clientele come back, and we had some people come into the gym too. Like we were gaining members, which was really cool to see. We were known as a very like clean gym. We have a very large space. So we can keep everyone, we have 12 people per class, but we can
Mhm.
keep most people like 14, 15. It might even be more than that. I think it's like 14 now feet apart just from their space. And then they get like a 14 by 14 box. And then it's another 14 feet just to the next person. So
Mhm.
we have a really large space, which kind of helps us here at Reach. Now, when it comes to the full plate, like philosophy, for example, I know it might be different between the youth and the adults, but you guys are strength conditioning. What is the philosophy for you when it comes to for programming for the adults, setting goals for them? What do you guys go after?
Well, to kind of come at it from the very beginning, our goal is really education based. So primarily, kind of our mission is to educate our community through strength and conditioning. That's what our mission is.
Yeah.
So we actually have a wonderful opportunity where we can treat our adults the same way as we treat our athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might not be doing like hang cleans with the adults, but we're doing other power work. We're still building up single leg strength, etc.
Hmm.
So all the things that make an athlete a good athlete make adults more healthy and more resilient to injury. And that's kind of a common theme across both populations, whether you're an athlete or whether you're an adult who just wants to play with his kids or whatever the case is. Being more resistant to injury is going to be a big part of that. The second part is, limiting pain. So through any strength coach, any gym, any whatever the case is, the first goal for anybody is to do no harm. That's number one. Whether it's in the gym or to get the athletes ready or the adults ready, whatever the case is, on the field, or to get somebody to climb a flight of stairs without pain. Like it all kind of comes full circle where not having pain is a big part of it, of our programming around everything. So for that reason, that's kind of the next big step of our programming. It's really to limit pain, improve performance, and then just have overall good quality of life.
Yeah. On this past episode, episode 3 of Power Performance Podcast, we talked about me and Molly talked about how she treats her adult clientele, because she has half, some kids and some adults, but she treats everyone like an athlete. Like there's an athlete inside of everybody. And
Mhm.
one of the most rewarding parts, no matter where you coach, if it's personal training, strength and conditioning, CrossFit, whatever it is seeing glimpse of that athlete come out of people that they
Mhm.
didn't know was there. When you see someone start to understand, even it can be as simple as the movement pattern of the squat, and they're like, I never thought I could do that. And then 6 months down the road, they just hit 100-pound front squat, and just seeing those little glimpses of, wow, there's really an athlete inside of everybody.
Mhm.
And with the proper program and coaching, you can find it. And a lot of people, that is what the kind of that surge to come back to the gym every single day is, because when you get 1% better every day, it's like, oh, I want to try this, or I want to get there. I want to do this. I just saw 4 pounds go, like 4 pounds come off my total body weight, things like that. And it just keeps people hungry for success, which is really cool in our field.
Mhm. Absolutely. And the big part about it is being consistent.
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't matter how hard you're working if you can't be consistent. Coming to the gym one day a week, yeah, it's fantastic that you can come in one day, but then you skip 2 weeks. It doesn't work out that way.
Yeah. Now at your gym, so um, your gym is pretty community based. A lot of your members know each other. You obviously know all your members. Um, Most of your members know all the coaches. Um, I got to know a lot of the members when I was there, just from being there, being around the clientele, all that stuff. And it's the same thing kind of here at Reach, or any CrossFit gym around the world. But there's also, in these smaller kind of private sector gyms, there's more of a coach to athlete relationship, I believe, that helps build that consistency as well. Like if we were just going to LA Fitness or something, no one's going to know that you didn't show up that day. But in your classes, you're well aware of, like, oh, someone didn't show up this morning. I wonder what happened. And then say the next time comes around, oh, they didn't show up again. Now I'm really wondering what's happening. So it really helps athletes in these smaller private sector style gyms really excel, because the coach has a coach to athlete relationship with these people. And that we want to see them grow for sure.
Yeah, that's a big part of coaching in general is communication. So, developing relationships is part of that communication piece. Kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah,
There's what they say is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, or people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care.
that's
And
true.
that's true. 100% that's true. People, they do want that connection, but for us as coaches, it's important for us to be able to relay that message. And what's the best way to do that? We got to connect with that person. If anyone hasn't read Brett Bartholomew's Conscious Coaching book, that's a good one to read. And he talks about all the different archetypes of the different athletes, and how to work with them. And when you read that book, you can kind of put faces to the types of people that Brett is talking about in that book. So learning ways to communicate with those athletes, and how every athlete is different. Like if you have a one-track mind and you want to treat everybody the same way, well, one of two things: athletes who don't mesh with that style of coaching, they're going to leave, because you don't have that relationship, you don't have that connection with them. And then you're also going to see more of a specific type of person come in, because that's who you're attracting through that style of coaching. So you can kind of build up your culture or tear it down just based on your connection with your athletes.
No, 100%. And that kind of relates to when you try and motivate, not even just someone inside of a gym, but sports coaches like football, basketball, they talk about it all the time. To motivate or push an athlete through something, everyone is wired in a different way. There's the best example is like a football coach. Or there's a story, I can't remember the book, but it's from a football coach, and he talks about how I can yell at one of my athletes, and it'll get it through his head that he made a mistake, or he needs to tighten this part of the scheme or whatever it is up. Where another athlete, I need to kind of sit him down and kind of explain things out to him for him to understand. So same thing here in the gym, where another athlete, they respond to explanation, or they respond to a more scientific description of breaking things down and showing them from the roots. Same thing in a gym. where some of my athletes, when the going gets tough, it's like, all right, this is the spot where you need to like push a little bit, especially like when it's just pure conditioning or something like that. It's like, oh, it's meant to hurt a little bit. Where when you're trying to develop somebody's front squat or a more technical movement, understanding the different pieces and maybe explaining it to them this way. It's the same thing in the gym as it is in sport. But then treating those motivational pieces to getting them to return to the gym and creating that relationship from, if you trust in me, one, won't hurt you, and two, I want to watch you grow. And having them trust in you is what it's all about.
Yeah, building that trust is that's paramount. That's a challenge for sure. Um, with that's part of coaching. You
Yeah.
have communication, your relationships, and you also have the physical coaching. There's so much involved there, and it's a big thing that wasn't obvious to me in the beginning. Starting the gym back at the old warehouse, it was all about the programming, and had nothing to do about developing the relationships. That knowledge kind of came a little bit later.
Yeah. So now let's talk about you as owner, coach. You're a Swiss
Mhm.
Army knife. Especially, I learned that really quick when I was there. You're programmer, coach, owner, friend to a lot of your clients. Now let's talk about your philosophy, one as an owner/coach, and the things that you think you've learned the most over your few short years as being the owner of Full Plate. And like, if there's a new owner, a younger owner, or a younger strength coach coming into the field, what are a few like pieces or tips of advice that you would give them coming into the field, things like that?
Yeah, we could talk about that for
For
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
Hours.
Well, first off, I try to obviously model the gym based off of our philosophies. So, simply put, obviously, doing no harm, preventing injury, developing athletes not only physically but mentally as well. That's a big part about it. Is developing everyone cognitively as well and developing relationships, like we talked about. But some of the biggest things that I've learned with opening the gym is one that um, there's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot that we know, or so we know some things. When we first start off, when we first graduate, we think we know a lot. Like we think we know everything when we first graduate.
You don't.
No, we don't.
You
No, not at
don't.
all.
You don't. As someone that recently just graduated, you don't.
Yeah, you think that you don't know a little bit, but then there's this huge expanse of things that you're not even aware of. So what they say is those are the things that you don't know that you don't know. You don't know that knowledge even exists. You don't know
Yeah.
that information is there at all. So opening up the business, I quickly learned that one, I didn't know how to run a business. Coach, but no, that's not the case. There's a lot more to business than just the coaching side of things. There's business, there's coaching, there's like you said, the programming. The second thing is that I quickly learned that I didn't know anything about strength and conditioning. So I graduated from Westwood State with my undergrad in exercise science. That's where you graduated from as well.
Yep.
And I thought I knew everything about health and fitness, which I knew some things, yeah, and I knew the basics. But when it comes to strength and conditioning, there's so much more to it than what I thought. So I quickly learned that I really didn't know what I thought I knew about strength and conditioning. It's not
Yeah.
about, hypertrophy, strength, and power. A lot more to power development than just, high speed and movement. There's a lot that goes into it with your progressions and programming, all that kind of stuff. There's just so much information out there. And then the third thing, which we already touched on, was the communication aspect of things. So I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to program for strength and conditioning, and I didn't know how to communicate or coach effectively. So all of those three things were just the culmination of just not having experience. So starting the business and having the work ethic to start the business, well, I didn't have any um, practical experience, any real world knowledge before I did that. Which, yeah, I worked as a trainer, as a personal trainer, as a group fitness instructor, but I had no strength and conditioning background whatsoever. And that's where the networks come in. So my piece of advice really for other coaches is, when you're first starting out, you have to essentially do your time. So one, you have to learn. I learned outside of school. It wasn't through the classrooms. It was through practical application. It was, top tier in the industry and looking at what they do for programs and kind of getting um, understanding why they're doing those things. Why are they sprinting first? Why are they throwing first? Why are they doing these things at this time? And understanding why they're doing it that way. Learning from other mentors and coaches um, through, or also going through, like, let's say people are going through GAs or whatever the case is. Um, Finding kind of observing as much as you can, going through unpaid internships, GAs or paid internships, and then getting into like an assistant position, like a obviously minimum wage, part time, whatever the case is, getting your foot in the door of somewhere and observing, looking at what they're doing and learning, making yourself useful. There's so much to learn before you actually go off and start doing things on your own. And that's my biggest piece of advice is you have to go out and you have to do the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
you might not get paid for the work, but you're learning, and
You're
that's
putting in the
that's.
hours.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, so this is where I'm going to give you a lot of credit. And I've told you this before, but I don't know if I've completely told you this before. I went through this realization. I've been in the field a lot, smaller amount of time than you have. And when I first got into the field, I had a lot of experience in athletics. My training age was moderate to decent. It was, 4 or 5 years, and things like that. And I came out, I was like, I think I'm prepared, got my first job, things like that. And I just wasn't. I just didn't understand certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But things that I took away and things that I provided into my programming were a lot of things that I learned at Full Plate. Programming, how to set up a program, how to fit a program inside of an hour, things like that. Because that's what the name of the game is, an hour block in any of our fields: personal training, CrossFit, adult fitness at your facility, youth fitness, everything. It's all inside of an hour. So understanding how to put all of that into play, how to build a program, how to help an athlete if they're injured, how to hit the reset button on an athlete that you might just be joining you. Things like that was all stuff I took away from Full Plate. And I still use those concepts today, like volume, intensity, progressions. I still use the progression sheet that you gave me, how to start with, we're going to start here. And if they can't start here, here's another 5 exercises that are even more regressed than there.
Yep.
And I still use that progression sheet with my youth athletes, even with my personal training athletes. And that's how I kind of set my foundation, was things that I took away from my internship at Full Plate and essentially just getting my feet wet inside of the field. Because when I went to Full Plate, I was like, I think I have a decent grasp on all this. And even there, I would leave and be like, I didn't know any of that. Like, I knew none of that. And then I would come back and then I would apply it. And I'd be like, okay, like, I'm doing all right. And the next week would come, I'd be like, I didn't know any of that either. And then by the end, I was finally comfortable with what I was doing, which was pretty cool to see. And over time, with how much knowledge you can retain and apply as a coach, is really cool. Now let's talk about you, training wise, just you as an athlete as well. Now, inside, what is a day in the life of owner, head coach, things like that? What does a day in your life look like?
Well, I'm doing all the work. So right now, with where we are,
Okay.
let's say on a standard day, I'll get up at 5. Our first group starts at 6. I don't live too far away from the gym, so I have enough time to get myself ready in the morning, get my breakfast and coffee, kind of head out. First group starts at 6. So I'll coach them for an hour, whether it's the group or personal training, whatever the case is. From there, I kind of built into my schedule my workout time. So from like 7 to 8, 8:30, sometimes 9, depending on the day. I do my workout. So for me, lifting wise, my goal is really the same goals as I have for all my athletes. So to be healthy, to be pain free, and to just keep training, to be consistent.
Yeah.
So for me, I kind of have a little like tendonitis in my knee that I'm kind of working around and kind of working on getting better.
Yep.
So that's kind of like what I'm focused on. I'm not really doing anything too heavy. I mean, I have some strength goals that I'm trying to go for, but I'm not necessarily powerlifting. Well, I am a little bit, but
Yeah.
uh,
Touching back on what you said about how you get up at 5 in the morning, coming back to what I learned at Full Plate, that piece right there where I used to come in early,
mm-hmm.
and understand coming in early, being able to work out, and the split day, like understand, like come, do your thing, coach, maybe train a little bit, go home, come back.
Mm-hmm.
That was also one of the most valuable pieces that I took away from my internship at Full Plate. Because if you're young out there and you're going into coaching and you don't understand what the flow of your day is going to look like, it is not a 9 to 5
Mm-hmm.
at
Nope.
all. And we touched on this in the last episode with Molly. It is not. We live a different lifestyle than a 9 to 5. It is wake up early, coach, meet all your morning athletes, maybe work out or do something that you have to do that day. You know, it could be doctor, get some lunch, whatever it is. Usually come back, coach again, and then go home. And that's just Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
It is a different lifestyle than just most people live. And learning that, you know, I was telling Molly this, I'm up at 5:30, 5:15 every day, start work around 6 or whatever I have to do that day when it involves coaching, around 6:30, and then continue on my day. I usually work out around 10:30, get
Mm-hmm.
lunch, and then coach all night or personal training all night or whatever it may be. But that split schedule is something that if you're a coach out there, try and get used to it pretty quick, because that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Especially when you first start out.
Oh,
Um,
100%. Because you
you know,
just
you're
try
not,
and fit everything.
yeah, you're not in charge of your own hours in the beginning. Like you got to make yourself available. You got to make
Yeah.
yourself useful in the beginning, and that's just the way that it is. You got to show that you want to be there. You want to show that you care. So I totally get that, and that's just where the industry is right now. Um, we're kind of fortunate where we have those or the earlier afternoons for the younger athletes when they get out of school. Um, we might get some one-on-ones in the early afternoon to kind of fill up some of that time. And
Yeah.
that's the way it goes.
Now
Uh,
at Full Plate, I meant to touch on this earlier. What is your coaching staff like right now? Was it impacted by COVID?
um, Not really, not really. So what ended up happening was um, Coach Bobby ended up moving in with his girlfriend in Connecticut.
Oh, nice.
So even regardless of COVID, he was going down there, and he has a job as a coach down there. He's doing a great job uh,
Awesome.
down in Southern Connecticut. So with him being gone, he's kind of in charge of some of our virtual classes up here. So even though he's not with us physically, he's still in charge of some of the virtual stuff.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
And that would have been possible before COVID because we had to do the virtual stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a great opportunity for him to still be a part of our team and then still, be living with his girlfriend down in Connecticut. So that's kind of the biggest change. Um, for Coach Ryan, he picked up the college guys I was telling you about because they were his athletes earlier.
Yep.
And then we have he has another high school hockey girls group that he works with. So he's picked up a few groups at that point. And then for me, I've kind of filled in the void of the adults with Bobby going down. So with my schedule, after working out in the morning. Oh, speaking of which, I come to a cool realization that I've been trying a new meeting template.
Okay.
So you know how we had our intern meetings, we would spend an hour and a half, and just kind of
Yeah.
ask questions and just learn a lot
It's
during that.
usually the times when I left saying I didn't know anything was after those meetings. That's those meetings. And it's another thing, just talking and sitting with coaches in the industry. Ours was through intern meetings, but if you get the chance to sit down with somebody, that is experienced or is an owner, or
Valuable.
just talk to them, ask them a question, whatever it is, make the connection.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, continue on.
If you can get a sit down with a coach, that is so valuable.
So valuable.
Um, so as you well know, we only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
Like only have so many hours, and you're going to get burnt out at some point. So making the most of those hours is extremely important. So one thing I've been playing around with is um, intern meetings, like lift. I call them lift reviews or lift meetings. So we'll kind of do our workout and we'll talk about all the stuff we would normally talk about in the meeting, but during our workout.
Yeah.
We're kind of hitting two birds with one stone.
Yeah. So we here, that happens all the time. We with some of the other coaches, and then our general manager's name is Dana. We'll work out together all the time. And when those workouts are flowing, your mind is also flowing. You come up with some of the best ideas.
Yeah.
Which is true. Or we'll have, a bunch of the coaches will come in and work out together, and then we'll have a meeting right after. And that's where we hit we do a monthly meeting here. And that's usually at night, and they'll come and work out, and we'll have a meeting right after. And some of the greatest and best ideas that you come out with are during or just post a workout.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point here as well. So I mentioned earlier that I really didn't know much about strength and conditioning and coaching. And that realization kind of hit me with our coaches meeting. So we have our weekly coaches meetings, and for a while we made a list of topics that we wanted to discuss each week, and every week the coaches would all bring literature and articles and research on these topics, whether it be speed development, power development, hypertrophy, strength, power, hormones, all that kind of stuff, programming. And we would have that discussion every single week based on that topic and the research that we found. And all that research and all those discussions kind of came to develop the program that you saw when you came in.
Yeah.
That wasn't me. That was the coaches. That was Ryan and Bobby and myself all coming together and just arguing for hours. I mean, you remember we would get at it.
Yeah, you guys would. But the other thing too is understanding that most coaches, if you put 3 coaches on the line, they might not all know the same information. So even just talking about simple subjects, one of them could be learning something that the other 2 might think is elementary information, or someone can be picking something up. But 2, research in our field is forever changing. So staying on top of current research, or especially now, staying on top of those things and learning new tricks to the trade, things like that, is you could have a meeting every week and learn 10 new things every single week.
Yep.
So it's super pivotal to just keep your mind in the books, and just be adaptive, I think, as a coach, and being able to adapt on the fly or adapt your training methodologies, everything.
Yeah. If you're Dr. Thompson over at Springfield College, he says that you got to be learning every day. And
Every day.
You got to be learning something new, and you got to be able to apply that. Like, don't just learn something for the sake of learning it. You have to think about how you can apply that information. If you can't apply it, it's kind of almost a waste. I want to say a waste of time, but you can argue that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have like our pleasure reading and we have our relaxation time. Yes, but as coaches, we got to have some time set aside every day to learn something about our craft, because it is constantly changing. There's so much information out there that's extremely valuable.
Oh, 100%. Now pivoting back to full plate, because we're coming up almost on an hour here. What are some things with full plate that you want to see kind of happen in the next year? Do you have a vision for? I know you got into powerlifting meets for a little while. Those were awesome to watch. Those were cool. Things like that. Like, do you have any visions for the next coming years?
Well, this year we didn't go out powerlifting meet mostly because of COVID.
Yeah.
We had our programming ready for 2020, but that kind of blew up. As far as our goals moving forward, we're looking to continue to reach out to our community. So we're trying to find ways to allow more athletes to come in and to get better. So it's not just limited to a few groups of 12 people, but how can we find a way to serve more people? That's kind of a big thing. Whether it be networking with other local facilities, whatever the case is, the schools, the teams, the coaches, the sport teams, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we do want to expand at some point. I mean, one of our limiting factors right now that we find is open space.
The size,
So
yeah.
turf space it's like gold.
Yeah.
Dealing with athletes, getting them to sprint regularly and jump regularly is so important. Because it all comes back down to speed. I mean, yeah, you can get them stronger. You can have them, squat, plate, lunge, deadlift, excuse me. And if you're not transferring that into speed work, then you're kind of missing out a little bit. Yeah, they'll have some benefits, but if as the coach, you're doing something to actively transition all of that power into speed, that's going to be a big benefit for your athletes.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for our goals, it's really just to keep working on ourselves, creating or delivering more value into our programs, kind of expanding our internship programs. Every single month, I keep looking at the internship programs, trying to make that better.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a great connection with Westfield because you've taken in more Westfield interns since me and Lucy came in, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So you have a great connection with the college, which is right in town too, which is good.
100%. So that's kind of our direction there.
Yeah. Now at your gym, I want to touch on this too. This is more of a fun topic. The record board is constantly coming up on my feed.
Yep.
Now, I have two questions about this. One, is the record board as competitive as it looks on social media?
Well, yeah.
Like people, it looked like the way you guys post it, it looks like people will walk into the gym someday and be like, I'm taking that down. That's my only focus today, is that's going down.
Yep. That's happened before. With our athlete groups, as you know, there's a lot of work that we have to get done.
Yeah.
So we don't give a lot of time for just breaking records.
Yeah.
We allow that more so after testing. So we actually just finished testing last week.
Okay.
And then this week is kind of like a deload fun week before Christmas. But during the testing week, we allow the athletes to go for kind of whatever records that they want to. Or some athletes just break records just by their normal training.
Yeah, just in training.
Yes.
Break the front squat record. I saw that happen all the time.
100%. For our adults, we have a little bit more freedom. So if they want to come in and take a record down, yeah, we can do that. As long as it's kind of fits with their training as well. If it fits with their training, fine.
Yeah.
You can't have people coming and trying to max out every day. That's going to be,
obviously,
a big problem.
But when I think about full plate, that record, like there's certain things about different gyms that you walk into all the time that have like their capstone pieces, and that record board, if you've never seen that it's big, and there's a lot of stuff going on there, and it's pretty cool to see. And I saw a handful of them come down, and I mean they came down with vengeance. Like I saw the shuttle one. I think I saw the shuttle one get broken one day, and the next day I showed up. The guy who used to have it broke it again because he was so mad that the other guy took it down. It was awesome. It was hilarious. But it also brings out the competitive. It brings out that athlete in people. It's it's a little piece of the pie that you have there at full plate that helps bring out that athlete in every one of your members. And it's not like they're Olympians. It's just they own the front squat record or they own the shuttle sprint record. It's pretty cool to see.
Well, think about it this way too. I forget what the exact percentage is, but when it comes to, let's say, speed and power development, I think that the percentage of maximum effort, I think it's over 93%. It could be 95 or 97. It's somewhere in the 90s in terms of effort that you give to the work that you're doing. So let's say that we're looking to get somebody faster.
Yeah.
Well, how do we do that? We have them sprint. All right, well, is it just sprinting 4 to 6 to 8 times a week, or is it sprinting at a certain effort?
Okay.
It's effort. So if they're sprinting at, 85, 90% of their capacity, of their effort, they're not going to be getting very fast because they're not pushing themselves at that point. And that I can't think of the percentages, but that is something that came up in the research that we had in our coaches meetings. Is it has to be at this certain percentage or higher of their effort. Um, so if we can get an athlete to be training at that 95% or more in terms of their speed development, then they're actually training effectively.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to be getting faster. And the record board is a medium that we can use to help athletes push it to that level and to train at that level, because that's what's going to be getting them faster, is training in that upper level of speed and power development.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it takes a different mindset. It takes all sorts of different factors to get into that zone or into that space to say, I'm about to enter this level. And it happens in all things. It happens. Athletes talk about it all the time. I had to bring it into the next gear, or I had to get into a different headspace to understand and comprehend what I'm about to put myself through mentally and what I'm about to put myself through physically. Even, Olympic sprinter all the way up to marathon runner. They have to get into a different zone to get peak performance. And it's just what has to happen. And everyone does it a different way.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to pull the athletes back too.
That is, well, we talked about that. Me and Molly talked about that, about talking about through progressions and hitting athletes, understanding it's okay to hit the reset button, especially coming off in season. So you went through a slate of games. Our example was like a baseball pitcher. He just went through a slate of games and understanding it's time to work on my shoulders a little bit, rehab them. It's okay to start back at ground zero, knowing that in the near future, inside my off-season programming, I'll be bigger, faster, and stronger in the long run. And having them mentally being okay with, like, it's okay to hit the reset button. It's all right to do more regressed movements than they might be used to. And having the athlete, like you said, educate the athlete so they know that what you're doing with them in month or block 1 is going to improve and help them in block 3 or 4 months down the road.
Yeah, especially when we consider that the athletes should be training in season as well.
Yeah.
When they're coming off and they've been maintaining their power and strength in season, and then we get back, we can spend a week or two to rehab and recover from all the throwing that we've been doing, and then come back and hit it again once we're ready to go. A lot of the times we have our athletes coming out of season and they're all banged up. They need the recovery time.
Oh yeah. Well, it's small, minuscule injuries, especially if they're overhead athletes. Overhead athletes are like, they need to recover their shoulders. They need to tighten some screws back up. Or if they're dominantly lower body athletes, hockey players, for example, get them mobile again, right? I know you used to talk to me about that all the time. Hockey players, got to get them mobile. But things like that, yeah, it's awesome. Any last things about full plate that you want to get out there? I mean, it's been a while. I want to come back and visit. It's been probably a year now since I've been out there. I need to come back.
Because you and Lucy stopped back in when you were in town.
Yeah, for alumni weekend. That was a year ago. A year and a few months ago. That was in like maybe September. But we got to come back out and visit, get a workout in. Or something.
Oh, yeah. You like the changes. We're always growing, man. We're always developing, and if we don't, I guess this is a good one for the coaches out there, for anyone out there. When you look back at your programs, and I actually did this today with one of the interns. When you look back at your programs, you don't shake your head in disapproval of what you were doing. You're doing it wrong. I think Mike Boyle says it this way. He was like, if you're doing the same thing that you were doing 10 years ago, you were either way ahead of the curve then, or you suck now.
Yeah. Well, so speaking on that, when I've looked back on the simple programs that I've created, it's minuscule things too. Like, what was that warm up? Or why were I having them do this exercise paired with this one, or this exercise for this phase? You're like, what was I thinking? Where now it's like, you look back at it and you're like, what? But that happens. So for all the coaches out there, that happens all the time. And it's pretty cool to see. But it's cool to see as a coach. It's cool to see your growth too, your knowledge growth, which is one of the coolest parts. Um, but all right, so Full Plate Strength and Conditioning, Westfield, Mass. If you're ever out there and you need a coach to go see Coach Ryan, Coach Steve, all the guys up at Full Plate. Strength and conditioning based, but they do adult group fitness as well, and they have their youth teams too. So it's a family affair for some groups out there, I bet. Anything else, Steve?
No, that's it. I appreciate you taking the time and inviting me on.
I appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah, it's great what you're doing, man. I really like to see what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, hopefully I'll be able to make it out to Westfield soon. We can work out together.
Yeah,
give me another one. Make it a strong one. We're gonna have some fun tonight. Just like the other one. Make it a double run. We're gonna cast away tonight. I'm in an island state of mind. Don't think I'm ever gonna leave. I'd rather stay and watch the waves move the sand beneath my feet. Reggae on the radio, laying low and feeling high. Easy living down in paradise. Pour me another one, make it a strong one. We're gonna have some fun tonight.